listeners to the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and listeners, today's conversation, it invites us to slow down and sit with a question we don't often ask in business. What if the breakthroughs we seek don't come from the boardroom, but from within ourselves? Now, we live in a world where leaders are measured by, growth charts, valuations, and hustle, the number of hours they're putting in. But what happens when success stops feeling fulfilling? Listeners, my guests today, Robert Grover and Gary Logan, know that exact moment. And they chose a radically different path. As co founders of the Journeymen Collective, they guide visionary leaders through deeply curated psychedelic journeys. Yeah, you heard that right. Not as an escape, but as a way to uncover hidden patterns, find clarity, and return to business and life with a completely new perspective. So, this isn't your typical strategy session. It's a dialogue about transformation, responsibility, and what it means to lead in a world hungry for authenticity. So let's quickly step into the conversation. And Rob and Gary, welcome to the show. And I'm absolutely excited for our conversation on this.
Thank you for having us. Thanks, Sana. It's great.
Super. Okay. So Rob and Gary, to both of you. So your work takes leaders on journeys that are very different from the traditional executive retreat. I mean, I don't know. I never have had any discussion conversation on psychedelic journeys in business. So, um, what do you see happening for business leaders when they experience this kind of paradigm shift?
Great question. So, one of the things that we see is that they have greater clarity, greater focus, greater creativity, decreased anxiety, decreased stress, decreased depression. The list goes on. But then what happens is from that, they have a greater ability to lead their people, their team members, their board members. And as a result of that, profits, prosperity increases. So I would actually say that it's transformative. And I think a lot of people have been trained in the world of transformation, where it's outside acting on the inside, and transformative, such as a psychedelic journey, allows you to go deeply within. And then as a result of that, it changes the outside world.
Oh, hmm, interesting. That's really interesting. And before we go, of course, we have to hear some great success stories in there. But before that, I would like to go a bit careful here because, there's a lot of hype and then there's integrity concerns as well. Now, if we talk about Silicon Valley, microdosing or pop up retreats, psychedelics are everywhere. So, how do you separate hype from the deep intentional work you are doing?
I think that comes down to the integrity and professionalism of the guides that you're working with and the organization that you work with. So, with the Journeyman Collective, it's not just a 4-day retreat. We're actually with you for 4 full months, and we take a pretty slow approach to getting to know people before we actually invite them in. So, our team members, as well as Rob and Gary, meet with every potential candidate, which typically takes place over 3 to 4 Zoom conference calls.
Okay.
And um, we want to make certain that people are purpose driven, that they're not just coming into um, take a pill in the allopathic way to see if they could, fix something and then not change anything on the outside. So it's like we wanna be certain that they're devoted to some aspect of a purpose-driven, conscious business.
Hmm. Hmm. Have you ever had to struggle to kind of, um, remove that, this skepticism or this preconceived notion that, okay, I'm just sitting here, or maybe they'll give me some pill and that's it. Maybe it will stay for a few days and then I'll be back to square one. Have you ever, like faced like this?
Um, it is a good question because with the Dreaming Collective, since our offering is 4 months, we really get to know the client personally, and they get to know us, and they get to trust us. In the environment they come in, they know that they're going to be taken care of 100% in luxury, in comfort, and that gives them the moment to relax and release those doubts, skepticisms that come in, and we are with you for 3 months after that. I think that's where we stand out differently than other similar offerings, that we are here for integration, and that's the most important part we feel of the whole journey.
Mm, wow, that's unique. 3 months, yeah. And I think this is an answer to a very powerful critique, because uh, many would assume that this will fade when they would return to their office. Yeah, let's now get to some success stories. So, Rob and Gary, can you share a moment or maybe moments, where a client's perspective on leadership completely changed afterward?
Definitely. And this is like the mainstay of our work. So there are countless examples. I would say one of the best examples that we have is there's an individual that came through and he's a brilliantly charismatic, like hard nosed business person. And he came through and he had tried a lot of other things, but he knew that he wasn't getting to where he needed to be. So he came and worked with us. And the guidance that came through in the journey for him was that he had to lead with love. And he was like, guys, come on. Like, I'm not going to start hugging people in the office. And we're like, no, this is fierce love where you get to hold people's feet to the proverbial fire so that you empower them and you lead them to actualize their highest potential through the work that you've done. And as a function of that, his family life is better, his work life is better. Everyone notices a massive difference in his leadership style. And as a result of that, his net worth tripled within 6 months of his work with us.
Oh, 6 months. Wow. Wow. Yeah. That really feels like interesting. Interesting. I mean, the dynamics are very interesting here. Of course, I'll come to a a kind of criticism or contradiction around this, but before that, of course, Rob and Gary, I mean, everybody would like to know what's the story behind, where it all started. So yeah, where it all exactly started for you guys. I mean, how did you got get this idea of that this is
Mhm.
something that we kind of should put value into, which will really help leaders to get to the point there where they desire, or maybe they're not even realizing that they have that potential.
Yeah, great question. And I'll do it my best to be very concise. So it wasn't like one day we were just working in the corporate world and then all of a sudden decided to start serving mushrooms or psychedelic journeys up to people. Both Gary and I have a depth of spiritual, personal, metaphysical backgrounds. So Gary has been an Alexander technique teacher. He's been in the mind body conscious awareness space since the late 70s. I've been in this space for about the last 2.5 decades. And um, both of us had our own individual performance coaching practices, and we were debating on whether or not to get into the retreat space. And
Okay.
then Gary's mom passed away, and she lived with us for 3.5 years.
Okay.
So we had a lot of tools in our tool belt. And when she passed away, it was a massive wake up call to basically say, what are you doing with your lives? Life happens quickly. Grief and depression set in, And we often say that depression is there because you're sick and tired of being the person that you used to be, and there's a new person that wants to come forward. We both went on individual journeys. We had no preparation, no integration support afterwards. And however, luckily, we were surrounded by a brilliant community of people. They saw the shift in us and they said, whatever you've done, I want it.
Mhm.
The grief, depression had left, and there was a newfound joy that we had rediscovered within ourselves. And then we basically said, we're going to commit ourselves to sharing this depth of spiritual work with people.
Mhm.
And as a function of that, um, people just came forward to support us in the growth of our company and create a brilliant foundation where it's not just the 4 days in person, it's 4 full months of like really intensive work.
Mm.
And um, basically, we started this in 2018 on the back of about 35 years of expertise from Gary and about 20 years from myself. And then when people come into our work because of the team that we have supporting you as well,
Mhm.
you're supported by about 100 plus years of expertise in the mind body conscious awareness space. And that's a big part of why there is such change, such transformative excellence that takes place for people. And another little story that I'll share with you is
Yeah.
there was a gentleman that came to us and he was a little bit skeptical. He was mainly coming because his wife thought he should come to be a nicer person. And he came through and he said, I have had a permanent shift in my perception and a permanent expansion in my capacity to be empathetic towards others, such that I
Mhm.
can be more compassionate in my leadership and more loving in my relationships.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what a journey. And the most striking fact, the most interesting aspect of this journey is the love of the people that you got, the support from community.
Yeah.
It really means a lot, and it's kind of, I believe a reality in today's era. And another interesting, I think, thing comes in my mind is, you guys started in 2018. That was, like what I can call as the pre-pandemic era. Uh, so, you know, do you see any difference between the um, concerns or the reasons that the business leaders they come up with, seeking for solutions or ways for healing, like before the pandemic and after the pandemic? Do you see any differences in there? Like any interesting observations have you seen?
We feel that I'd say 99% of our clients come in for community and connection, which most likely wasn't happening a lot prior to that date. And I think when that pandemic, you call it, took a moment for everybody to reflect on self. It's like, who is around me and who do I want to be around and associated with in my life? So there's a lot of filtering going on. And when they discover the Journeyman Collective, it's really a moment to sit back and reflect upon oneself and one's inner journey on one's life. And then they take what they've learned and understand, implement it in their life moving forward. So there was a major shift in the humanity's way of thinking about oneself.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And yeah, of course, before we wrap up, Rob and Gary, of course, whenever we mention about plant medicine or psychedelics, now some critics would argue, not generalizing, but some critics would argue that psychedelic journeys, they're, like they would dismiss plant medicine as too out there to have any place in serious business. So, what do you say to leaders who think psychedelics or anything around this um, inner self healing, all these softer, or even business doesn't have any place for emotions or empathy. They don't belong in conversations around profitability or strategy.
I would say come on a journey and we'll show you a thing or two. And I would also say that a lot of people operate in the business world without an understanding of universal laws or metaphysical laws or quantum laws of the universe. And as above, so below, as within, as without. When you actually start to recognize that, hey, I want greater peace in my life, I want greater prosperity in my life, then that's an inside job. All the answers are within. We're not saying anything new. We're just showing you a way so that
Mm.
you can discover those answers within. If you have conflict or disconnect, disharmony, or a lack of anything in your life, it's because of what's taking place on the inside. And there are so many different laws that actually, universal laws, that actually are deeply ingrained in a lot of businesses, but people are just unconscious. So I think the other piece that's coming forward is that more and more people are becoming, they want to be more conscious. And Dr. Lisa Miller's latest book, The Awakened Brain, talks to the fact that most of humanity right now uses the achiever's brain, and the awakened brain, and this is my own synopsis of her work, the awakened brain is knocking at the door of the achiever's brain to say, hey, there's a greater capacity here. And it's shown on MRIs that people who use their awakened brain have some aspect of spirituality or faith in their life or religion. They have a greater neural activity in their life. They have greater neural activity in their brain, sorry. And because of that, they are typically happier, more peaceful, more harmonious, more driven, and they use that in conjunction with their achiever's brain.
Mm, that's very interesting. Very interesting. And yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I think we always talk about that business has always rewarded bold risks, but I think the boldest risk is like, the inner one, like
Mhm.
choosing to look within and transform the very lens through which a leader would lead. So, Rob and Gary, if our listeners, especially entrepreneurs and business owners, they would like to connect with you and explore more about the work that you do, the resources that you provide, what would be the best way?
Yes, we have a brilliant website, www.thejourneymen, MEN, collective, one word.com. Please go to that website and take time to review it and sit with it. All that information that's there for you is to help you make a step forward in the right direction of your life.
Superb. I'll make sure to add all the links and details in the show notes so that our listeners can easily connect with you, Rob and Gary. And thank you. Thank you so much for this powerful, much needed conversation. You have really shown us, that's what I believe, that transformation isn't about expansion. It's also sometimes about subtraction, like removing noise or peeling back layers, like listening inward. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
Wow, super. So to all the listeners, um, the deeper invitation is universal to ask ourselves, what patterns am I ready to release? And what new way of leading am I ready to embrace? With that, I wrap up this episode of BizBlend. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.